Good day. Welcome to another edition of Spotlight on Mayapack Schools. I'm Eric Gross, your host, along with Superintendent of Schools Anthony DiCarlo. And Anthony, it's been some time.
Yes, it has. It's been a very interesting number of weeks. I'm very happy to report that, we have had some really good success as a district. We've had a couple of hiccups in the middle school in Lakeview. But what's really interesting, Eric, is every Monday, and, about 3 weeks ago, we had a meeting with Shanna Siegel from the Putnam County Department of Health, and we're still seeing that it's not being transmitted in schools. So we have had some isolated cases where we've had to, quarantine, whether it be a class, whether it be a team. But fortunate that we are not seeing a microburst having to do with schools, which is great. And it's happening all through Putnam. It's not just Mayapack. So that we're able, through our mitigation and what we're doing with the social distancing of the 6 feet and the masks, it's working. Okay? So it's really important to understand. But what's also happening, Eric, and it's where people are struggling with this, there's no cookie cutter set prescription for every case. There's not. Each case is different. The Department of Health, not only on the county level, but on the state level, is learning things. And so therefore, there will be times that there has to be extended contact tracing. So we may have to be shut down for a couple of days,
Right.
which is what happened with the first couple of incidents. This latest incident, we didn't have to do that because based on the individual who tested positive and his or her interaction, it was contained to a certain group. And therefore, it wasn't needed to continue to go on to that contact tracing. It was quicker, and therefore, we didn't have to lose additional school days of not having students to be in. We work very closely with the Department of Health in Putnam, and then we send that up to the state. And we do our own internal investigation, and so we have a pretty good gauge of who needs to be contacted. Okay, now, what's happening, and this is all over the place, some people are being contacted by the state. And so if they're not being contacted, then they should let either us know or the Department of Health know if they think they were in contact with that individual, and to follow up. Because the system's not perfect, but we're doing our part to make sure that we are having our schools healthy and safe and being able to continue to have our programs as much as we can each and every day. With that being said, I'm happy to report that our sports programs have not lost any games because of situations with us. Some of our opponents, we've had to, shift games because they've been out, but not us. And I think that's a credit to our students, our student athletes. They're really following wearing the mask and the social distancing. But I'm going to say what I've said for the last 7 or 8 months. And it's happening more and more. You're seeing a lot of high schools losing days and weeks because of parties on the weekend.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's happening, Eric, it's happening in Putnam. It's happened already. It's happened a number of times down in Westchester, where the students are hanging out, they're not social distancing, and they're not wearing their masks, therefore causing that microburst. And here's the difference. In high schools, the students change classes. Teachers change classes. So that's why when somebody winds up being a positive case, it takes out a lot of the building, if not all.
Right.
Okay? So in your middle schools and high schools, you may see more of that happen if there is a case because they're switching. Your elementary schools, no, because your teacher is just with that class. They're contained. Those kids are eating in their classrooms.
Right.
So it may be the individual teacher and that class, but not the entire building, not the entire grade level. And those are the things that we're working with. We cannot, and I know it's frustrating, and we've had this conversation again, because of HIPAA and FERPA, we cannot tell you who it is. If you are a contact of that individual, you will be notified by the principal and or administrator, okay? And then ultimately by the state contact. If you're not, that means in the investigation it wasn't warranted.
Right.
So it's a lot of trial and error, but I'm happy to say that I think we're doing a good job. As you know, it's not going to be perfect. It hasn't been, and it will not be in the future. But to the best of our ability, what we're doing and how we're doing is important. And so we're coming up to the end of the first quarter,
Yeah.
and we're going to be working with our stakeholder groups. We're going to be working with our MTA, our PTOs, our Board of Education, and doing what's called a thought exchange, and getting a series of questions out there to see how we're doing, what some things we may be able to do in the next semester, because we want to make sure we're listening, but also following that guidance. I know there's a lot of people around the area, because a lot of districts are going through this, that would like to see all the kids come back.
Right.
We just can't do that right now. We just have to stay with the CDC guidance and the state guidance. But that's not to suffice it to say, if things get better, and we get through this initial, I think, flu season, and we get past the holidays, we may be able to explore, but it's all going to be based on health and safety. So I think that's important.
You talk about the young people doing, quote, reckless things, reckless behavior on the weekend. It's just so simple. If you folks out there don't have these large gatherings, don't do anything foolish, you're protecting the whole district.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I speak to the athletic teams all the time. I try to leave about 4:30 from the office here and go and watch some of the games. And our kids are really good about it. And I speak to them. Mr. DiCarlo is not naive to know that you're not going to hang out. You're going to hang out.
They're
Let's
kids.
be honest. They're kids. And they need that socialization.
Right.
But wear your mask
Yeah.
and socially distance.
Right.
That's the important piece to what's going on, right? Because if we can continue to do that, we're going to be able to stay in school. We're going to be able to continue with our sports programs. And we're going to be able to have at least somewhat of an experience. Because we don't want to go 14 days at a time to full remote. We really, really don't want to do that. So I think our kids have been great. I mean, if you're in the hallways and you see the kids during the course of the day, they're wearing their masks, they're socially distanced, they're doing what has to be done in school. I get that. But again, it's that outside of school stuff that we want to make sure that we can just remind not only the students, but also the parents to make sure that they follow those regulations.
We know that you visit the schools regularly, elementary school, the middle school. How are the little guys and gals doing? Having lunch in class?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It becomes like everything else, a part of a norm, right? So in the beginning, it's a little bit new to them, but then they get the understanding about the why behind it, and they kind of acclimate themselves. The kids are resilient.
Yeah.
Kids really understand and do a really pretty good job with that. So, again, we're in the beginning of November. We want to keep the momentum going, and as I say, the following is every day that we get in is a great day.
Yeah.
Both from an academic point of view, a social emotional point of view, and those of our student athletes who are playing it's great.
And as you and I talked not too long ago, we didn't know it was going to be this good at this point of the season in November when we talked about this back in the summer and in early September.
Yeah, and like anything else, I think once you start and you develop a routine for cleaning and what we're doing, I think that continuity, I think the staff, once we got the kids in and realizing, wow, we have them in front of us and we have them remotely, but we have them back, and I think once you get into that kind of a rhythm and, to get that into kind of a patterning, both from the student's point of view and from the teacher's point of view, it's part of what we do. Now, there are going to be times, Eric, and I mentioned this, that there may be some bumps in the road. And it's happening all the time, and it's happening with regards to having coverages, because if you have individuals, in some cases teachers or staff, who now have to quarantine, you may not have your son or daughter's teacher in front of you live, but they may be remote. Okay, and there may be a teacher assistant or a monitor sitting there supervising the class while the teacher is remoting it. Those things are going to happen. We're going to have days where we may not have enough coverage because we have a number of teachers who may be quarantined, plus now teachers who may be sick and whatever. So it's really an ebb and flow, and we want to keep the momentum going, but there are going to be ups and downs.
There was a school district or two school districts up in Dutchess County in the last week or two. It's just what you're saying happened. There was insufficient number of staff. So they had to go remote.
And there may be days, Eric, where we have to combine classes. So that we can get the kids in school. And see, and there's the yin and the yang, right? We have the public who wants the kids to be in school because I understand it. They have to work and do what needs to be done.
Sure.
And we understand that. So there's going to be times where, they may be in with one person but two classes, but getting the best instruction they can because at least the teacher is with them remoting it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Construction. If you remember one of our last shows, we showed you some of the work that was taking place at the middle school. They're putting a new roof on the middle school building. What's the latest?
So I'm happy to say that all the punch list items for our initial phase of our roofing and facings are almost complete. The project itself, the initial phase, was done.
Mm-hmm.
It was done more or less on time and below the budget that we thought we'd have to spend on the initial phase, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's important for the public to understand is now we're getting into that phase one. And right now, up in Albany, is all the work that we're looking at the high school. We're looking at the music suite and music area. We're looking at the science labs. We're looking at the STEM. We're looking at the entranceway. We're looking at the water treatment plant. We're looking at the field at the high school. So there's going to be a lot of work that's going to start next summer, go into the fall and through the next summer. And we all have to be patient and understanding because the work is going to be going on during those times. So, and it's important. So there'll be certain things moved around and things that need to be done. But like anything else, we're being, again, cautiously optimistic because of the fact that COVID happened in the late winter,
Right.
early spring. No districts went out to bid. So we're hopefully going to get really good numbers for bidding again, and then hopefully have the project come in on time, under budget, and then we'll go into our final stage. We're pressing ahead. We're really, really excited. We're pressing ahead, there'll be a lot of work next summer.
And with the recent heavy torrential downpours we've had,
Yeah.
the roofs are hanging
Yeah,
in
the roofs
there.
are doing very well, which is great. I mean, we got that initial kind of let's see how things are going, and they worked out, very, very, very well. So that's a great thing.
Anything new with the Board of Education these days?
Yeah, so a couple of things that are really, I think, important. We are going to be having a meeting next week and talking about our next steps when it comes to our Board of Education meetings. Although the governor has allowed meetings to become virtual, the board is looking at whether or not we're going to be able to go live. But most importantly, having people be able to either show up live, and it may be, Eric, that it's it's a lottery or first come first serve, that you can come, that you can give your thoughts on agenda items or regular comments. You would come in, you have to sign on, our sheet that everything is okay.
Right.
From a health point of view, probably get your temperature taken. You would come in, you speak what you have to say, and then move on from there. Or if we remain virtual, what we would do is like we did with our webinar when we did our town hall meetings.
Right.
So let's say I'm the person who's in charge. I would allow you to come in at a certain point in time, say what you have to say. I'm Eric Gross from X address 83 Wampum Way, Mahopac, New York. You have your 3 minutes to say what you have to say, and then you would leave. And then the next person would come in the webinar, so it's secure. So that's some of the stuff that we're looking and working on as we make those next steps in some of our board meetings, because we think it's very, very important to be able to do that as we move forward.
If the public wants to get involved,
Yeah.
they have the right to get involved. They have
No
the
question.
parameters set, though.
No, there's no question on that.
Yeah.
And speaking of parameters set, just a quick update on the governor and quarantining.
Yes.
So recently we just got an update that if you travel outside the contiguous states that surround us, you now, if you're leaving, like for example, let's say you travel down to Florida, okay? Upon 3 days before you leave Florida, you would take a test,
Right.
okay, down in Florida, a COVID test. You can fly back, then you have to be quarantined for an additional 4 days. When you're back here, take that second test. And if both of those tests, the one you took down in Florida and the one up here, say that you're negative, then you can go off quarantine and then proceed on your way. So that's a little bit different than it was.
Yeah.
Originally, it was back in your 14 days
Right.
and that's it. So I go back to what we said 5 minutes ago. Things are evolving and things are changing as we go through. And we're going to be sending something out specifically about what I just mentioned in our update on Friday. So that's another change as we go forward. Winter sports. So I need to clarify this because there seems to be some confusion. Originally, when the governor gave his executive order, he talked about low, moderate, and high impact sports.
Right.
So the low to the low impact sports that can be played in the winter are the following: skiing, bowling. We don't have fencing, but fencing, as well as indoor track. Okay. Those sports are allowed to be done during the course of the winter. What we're waiting on for the governor, who has not made a determination yet, are those high impact winter sports. And that's wrestling, competitive cheer, basketball, and hockey. So a decision has not been made as of yet. So we're waiting for that, and we're walking through things. And so Eric, we're going into the winter, right? I just had a meeting today with the grounds crew because football now is scheduled to start March and April of next year. Well, guess what? We have to work on how you're going to clear the field off of the snow, off of the turf field. So it's these things that you don't think about, but now become part of this whole COVID pandemic and switching things around. So we're working hard, to try to make sure that we are as proactive as possible as we move forward.
You know, you talk about moving snow off the turf field. It's not grass; it's turf.
I know.
So you don't want to rip up the field.
No, so you're looking at blowing it. You're looking at if you do go on with the, you have to shovel it, or you put some kind of maybe a bobcat. You have to make sure you don't go to the ground, but you come up with it and take the snow off that way. Again, who knows what the winter's going to be like, but you have to do it. Because if you don't do it, Eric, and you have ice on that field, then you have nowhere to practice. Because you can't be on the dirt field. It's going to be sopping wet with mud and everything else. So these are the type of things that we have to do. But on a great note, the lights on the field have been awesome. The stadium lawns have been awesome.
They put Giant Stadium to shame.
There you go. Bill Kennedy, who's been taking pictures forever. Bill Kennedy said to me, Mr. DiCarlo, it's the first time forever I haven't had to touch a picture up because of the lighting. So, and that's nice to know that, because that was part of the initial phase bond too. So I think that it's important for the public to understand that their investment is really starting to pay dividends. And that's really, really important for everybody to understand.
And it's not all doom and gloom in Mahopac.
No, it's not. I mean, at the end of the day, the kids are our seniors are starting to get their letters out and their essays out to colleges. That's progressing and moving forward. There's a lot of virtual visits now that wind up going on because you can't be at a school or your university. And again, we're trying to the best of our ability. We're starting to open some stuff up. We know that although we have sports, now we're looking at our arts, our music, our orchestra, our band, starting to get kids maybe to be able to come in and do some of those, ensembles and work again, socially distanced. Our athletic programs that have off-season workouts to be able to do some of that, socially distanced outside and then possibility inside. So we're starting to try to bring things back to somewhat normal, but again, based on the CDC and state guidelines.
What do you hear from your compadres in the Putnam County, Westchester area?
Yeah, so it's interesting. There's another big discussion going on, and it's important for the public to understand, and I'll be giving them information. Originally, the governor had told us, we're going to shut you down by region, right? And we were Region 4, I think it was. That's no longer that way. If you've been watching, he's doing red, yellow, and orange zones, okay? However, if you are in a red or orange zone, he's demanding that everybody be tested to be able to come back. And then once you come back, you have to have 20% of your teachers and your students tested. Now, here's the issue. Okay, well, who's paying for the testing, right? These are the things, so these things get rolled out. And so now, as a group, we're looking to see how we can scale, if God forbid, Putnam County had to go into a red or orange zone, how we can scale that, and then you're going to get, well, what do you mean you're testing Eric and you're not testing Stas? Why was I picked? Why were you not picked? It constantly in a lose-lose situation. And I want to spend a second on this. None of us have ever been through this before. And I use these two words and I speak from my heart with it. we as a society, but most importantly, the community at Mayapack, have to really talk about hope and kindness, because we model for our kids. And to be yelling and screaming at people over social media, sometimes in public, doesn't do anybody any good. I mean, I think we need to stop and take a deep breath and understand we're all trying to do the best that we can. We all would love to have the kids back together as it normally was before this started this past March. But there's certain things that we can't do. But to be, belittling people, shaming people does not do anybody any good, because it's not a collective approach to being able to do something. And I really say this as we're going into Thanksgiving and giving thanks for our health and our well-being, is to really think about those two words, hope and kindness, because we should be modeling for our students, not showing them some of the things that really don't do anybody any good. And I think that as the last 3 weeks, as you said, we talked about, Eric, I mean, I think the parents see a little bit now of what we're doing, the patterning of it, kids somewhat acclimated. And again, like I said, we're going to do the thought exchange, and we're going to get, ideas as we move forward through the rest of the year.
Hope and kindness. Nice way to end the program. We also like to express our sympathy to 2 losses in the Mayapack School District in the past few weeks.
Yeah.
Stash, we wish you and your family the best.
Yeah, and then we had that horrific car accident
Right.
with Mr. Moore and Miss Ryan. Again, 2 community members, just an absolute tragedy. Our thoughts and prayers are with both of those families during these difficult times. And as we come upon the holidays, we will continue with our thoughts and prayers for those who tragically lost, a husband, a father, and and also a wife and a mother. So our hearts go out to those families.
Hope and kindness. Remember that. For Superintendent of Schools Anthony DiCarlo, I'm Eric Gross. We thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Spotlight on Mayapack Schools. Until next time, be safe. Bye-bye now.
For more information, please visit our website, www.mayapack.k12.ny.us.